Harbaugh is out as the Ravens head coach after 18 seasons. He was the second longest tenured coach in the league behind the guy that beat him last week, Mike Tomlin. Harbaugh won a Super Bowl in 2012, but is 4-7 in the playoffs since then. Of course, Harbaugh led the Ravens to a win over the 49ers in Super Bowl 47. His 193 wins, which includes the playoffs, are tied for the 12th most in NFL history. His Ravens have won 6 division titles. As we welcome in Dan Graziano to have a little bit more about this conversation. Dan, for the people that weren't here a little bit earlier in the show when we broke this news, what went into this decision?
Look, obviously, Christine, the Ravens had an extremely disappointing season. They were a preseason Super Bowl favorite that finished 8-9 and were eliminated Sunday night with a loss to the Steelers. It has been difficult for the Ravens in recent years to have the kind of postseason success that they feel matches up with the rosters they have built. Last year, eliminated in Buffalo in a very disappointing fashion. The year before that, losing the AFC Championship game at home to the Kansas City Chiefs. Ravens, John Harbaugh, this has been a very long and very successful marriage. They did win a Super Bowl together, but all good things do come to an end, and it seems the Ravens have made the decision that now is that time. I would expect John Harbaugh to be a strong candidate for head coach openings elsewhere. Literally every single team that has a head coach opening is likely to call and find out if he is interested. Much like his mentor, Andy Reid, who was let go by the Philadelphia Eagles after a long run and signed a contract with the Chiefs less than a week later. That has obviously gone extremely well. I would not be surprised to see John Harbaugh get one of these other head coach jobs that are currently open. Yeah, that's a really good comparison as we welcome in Mina Kimes to the conversation. Mina, your reaction to John Harbaugh being out of Baltimore?
Yeah, I mean, first I'm shocked, right? John Harbaugh is one of the most successful coaches in NFL history. He's a Super Bowl winner. I always think back to how he handled Lamar's first season, some of the coaching changes he made correctly, moving on from Greg Roman, for example, bringing in Todd Monken. I thought he did a fantastic job in that. Some sense to me, this is a team that has consistently fallen short in big moments in small ways. Execution errors at times, and you can't blame John Harbaugh, for drops in playoff games and missed kicks, but on the whole, when a team does lose in close games in that fashion, ultimately it does fall at the feet of the head coach. I would be interested, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more reporting coming out in hearing more about his relationship with the quarterback, Lamar Jackson, and whether that perhaps had run its course too. And if that's true, obviously, then Baltimore, I think, made the correct decision in choosing their quarterback, quite frankly. But this is a truly surprising decision. And I will say this, John Harbaugh, as Dan said, very desirable candidate, of course. A number of the teams that have openings should look to hire him. Atlanta is a team that comes to mind as being a good fit for me, given the state of the roster, which is quite good. But yet this is something with massive ramifications, not just for Baltimore, but for the entire NFL and for the coaching search.
Yeah, Mina, you mentioned the fact that Harbaugh made so many good decisions when Lamar Jackson first got there as his quarterback, but also the rift that they had in their relationship. What do you think this means for the future of Lamar Jackson in Baltimore?
Oh, it's an incredibly desirable job. So let's start there. I will say, I think the Ravens roster was maybe a little bit overrated, by myself included, headed into the season, but by a lot of folks. You saw some of the holes pop up. Obviously, they lost their best pass rusher, Nnamdi Madubuike, but there was other issues on the roster, inability to get pressure, some issues on the back end as well, tackling. We saw that in the final game. They don't have a wide receiver one, some problems on the offensive line. It's still a very good team. They still have Lamar Jackson, who, as we saw in the final game, is still one of the best.
The Baltimore Ravens have fired longtime head coach John Harbaugh. That's been confirmed by our lead insider, Jonathan Jones. Harbaugh is out after 18 seasons in Baltimore. He was the second longest tenured head coach in the NFL, behind only Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. Under Harbaugh, the Ravens were a perennial playoff contender. He led them to their most recent Super Bowl title in the 2012 season, but this season was a disappointment, with Lamar Jackson nursing various injuries for most of the year. The Ravens, as a result, finished 8-9 and missed the playoffs. Our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. JJ, bring us up to speed with this major news out of Baltimore.
This is huge news, Haley. You're talking about the second longest tenured active head coach with just one team in John Harbaugh with the Baltimore Ravens. The winningest coach with the Baltimore Ravens in that franchise's history. One of the few active head coaches who has won a Lombardi, of course, missing out on the postseason, but not that long ago in the AFC Championship game, just a drop 2-point conversion away from potentially going back last year. The head coach of a multi-time MVP, John Harbaugh, just signed a 3-year contract extension in the summer. And yes, of course, again, a disappointing season. Ravens haven't been able to get over the hump. And we were all wondering with that AFC North battle with the Ravens and the Steelers, if the loser of that game would potentially wind up no longer being the coach of that team. A lot of questions around Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course. But it's John Harbaugh who, just a couple days after the conclusion of the season, winds up being fired by the Baltimore Ravens. Multiple years still left on his deal. And Haley, I am here to tell you, and we're going to really dive into this, but this has incredible ramifications, not only for the future of potentially Lamar Jackson and that franchise, not only for the head coaching candidate pool, because a lot of teams, you would think the Ravens are going to vault way up to the top of this list. There were 6, now there's 7. And of course, the other teams looking for a head coach. Well, now maybe the top candidate is now available.
So many things to consider. You mentioned it, the Baltimore angle of this, how this impacts the coaching search around the NFL. But I want to start here with Lamar Jackson. There's been a lot made over the last few weeks, last few years even, of his relationship with John Harbaugh, with his commitment to Baltimore. How will this be a factor with Lamar Jackson going forward now without a head coach?
To be determined, of course. Look, the firing of John Harbaugh certainly signals that the Ravens thought that there needed to be some fresh blood in there, that they thought that there needed to be some sort of cultural reset going on there. Whether that directly relates to Lamar Jackson and the rest of the team, if it's a collective, if it's something more pinpointed, I'm sure we're going to figure out over time with more reporting. But obviously, this has not settled Lamar Jackson's future with the Baltimore Ravens because there's still a whole head coach to hire left to do. And if you go back a couple of years when they hired Todd Monken eventually as offensive coordinator, Lamar Jackson wanted to be more involved in that process for offensive coordinator. Surely and certainly the highest paid player on the team today and ever in Lamar Jackson will be consulted and be involved in this search for a head coach. If he's not, if they don't ask what he thinks about anything, I think that is a signal about Lamar's standing in Baltimore moving forward. As it stands right now, though, I have to imagine that Lamar will be involved. And then once they do install that coach, how does that coach and Lamar interact with one another? So again, this is major. This is a franchise that doesn't typically make moves like this, right? And what it means, we can't say just yet, because we have to see who they hire. But certainly and surely, if the Baltimore Ravens want Lamar Jackson in their future, they will involve Lamar Jackson in their present, which is now a head coaching search.
A lot to think about. Lamar, after that game, was asked about his future in Baltimore. He said, I can't even think about it right now. I'm still so stunned at how this game against the Steelers ended. So a lot of decisions to be made there. If we go back to John Harbaugh, you talked about it. Obviously, a lot of people are going to want to speak to them about their head coaching openings here. What's next for him?
I think that John Harbaugh is going to have his pick. Now, right now, there are 6 head coach openings, right? You have the Giants, you have the Titans, the Browns, the Las Vegas Raiders. We see right here, of course, the Cardinals and the Falcons. Of course, he's not going to the Raiders. There are 6 available jobs to him. I can't see or envision a world where he chooses the Cleveland Browns or the Arizona Cardinals, okay? Will Tom Brady try to make a run at John Harbaugh? I mean, he's the top coach that's going to be out there on the market. He's clearly the most decorated coach who's going to be out there on the market. I don't have to talk to John Harbaugh to tell you that I'm sure that he wants to continue coaching. The New York Giants, very proud franchise, one that hasn't had any sort of winning any time lately. Do they want to turn to John Harbaugh and with general manager Joe Schoen, who may be on the last year of his contract, and will they turn over more of the football operations to John Harbaugh? This is a situation and scenario where not only can he choose where he wants to go, Harbaugh that is, but he can also sort of choose how much power he wishes to have, wants to have a little more control than the traditional head coach does, a little more say in personnel matters. He'd be able to do that. This is, Haley, we've been saying it for weeks, a weaker head coaching candidate pool, okay? And so when you get a guy like this, a big fish, who clearly still has it, I think a lot of people, reasonable people, can agree that a change could have been made in Baltimore, that people can agree to that it just got a little stale there, that it might be better for both sides. John Harbaugh, inarguably, is a top candidate this cycle, and I think a lot of people would argue is the top candidate now.
I mean, JJ, you said Tom Brady reaching out and